The air inside the subway felt heavier than ever before. Fear clung to everyone like a suffocating fog. Even Sung-ha and Lieutenant Lee looked terrified, their eyes darting from the shaking walls to the trembling floor. The Dokja had vanished after its terrifying announcement, but the weight of its words still pressed on us all. I waited, staring blankly at the empty space where it had disappeared, wondering if someone, anyone, would appear and save us. It was absurd, yet deep down, I still expected the story to unfold as it always had. But something was wrong. The events I remembered from the novel and the ones happening now seemed to blur and twist together. It was as if every version of the story, even the ones that never been written, were happening at once. I tried to search for the story again on my phone, desperate to reread it, to confirm that this was really 3 ways to survive the apocalypse. But nothing came up. No search results, no cached pages. The title didn't even seem to exist anymore. It wasn't a popular series to begin with, so it was unlikely that anyone had bothered to share it illegally. That's when I remembered the message I had received earlier, the one with the attached file. I opened it hesitantly. My heart stopped for a moment when I realized what I was seeing. There was an option to save all the files. I rubbed my eyes, half expecting it to disappear, but it was real. The author had sent me his novel, his entire work, as a gift. It felt wrong. Sharing novels like this was illegal, but what was the point of laws now? If the author himself had sent it, then what was right or wrong no longer mattered. Before I could process that, a flicker of light appeared before my eyes. The status window. It had been updated again. It said that every survivor of the TWSA world had received a special attribute and a skill linked to it. I realized then that things were following the story's sequence, but not perfectly. I tried to open my attribute window, but nothing happened. Panic crept in. If I couldn't access my attribute, I couldn't discover my skill. I was effectively powerless. I didn't have time to dwell on it, though, because my attention returned to the attached file. I decided to read it first. The moment I opened the file, the status window flickered again. My attribute had been activated. I could read faster. The words flowed into my mind in seconds. In less than a minute, I had consumed the entire opening chapter of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. As the information sank in, details about my surroundings filled my mind. I was in cabin 37-7. That explained why everything felt off. In the novel, the protagonist wasn't here. He had been in the cabin behind this one. The discrepancy gnawed at me. The events I remembered weren't aligning perfectly. I thought about the other cabins, about 3807 in particular. In the story, chaos had broken out there first. That's where it truly began. I glanced in that direction, dread curling in my stomach. I knew exactly what would happen next. It was already too late for them. In the novel, only 2 people survived that cabin. Hyun-sung Lee, the steel swordsmaster, and the high school girl, Lee Ji-hae. The rest, all died. I could already hear the rising shouts from 3807. Someone, a boy named Namwon Kim, was taking control, his voice sharp and cruel. Soon enough, the first body hit the floor. The atmosphere in the subway changed completely. Fear turned to hysteria. I knew what was coming next. I remembered every line of that scene. Namwon justified it with cold logic, saying that someone had to die so that others could live, that this was a kill-or-be-killed world now. The others began to falter under his madness, some agreeing, others trembling too much to resist. It was exactly as I had read it. Namwon was one of the first to accept this new reality, one of the first to break free from morality. He shattered the fragile sense of civilization that still held people together. And all I could do was watch. I wasn't part of this scene in the original timeline. I was only a reader, a spectator. If I interfered now, I could ruin everything, twist the story beyond recognition. But when I saw the elderly woman, the first victim, being dragged forward, I hesitated. I remembered a line long ago. Executioners pull the lever of the electric chair together so that none of them know who actually killed the prisoner. This world felt like that. Everyone here was pulling the same lever, pretending they had no choice. Sangha's voice broke through my thoughts for a moment. She wanted to help. She couldn't just stand there. But she wasn't meant to intervene. She wasn't the hero of this world. I knew that if she acted rashly, she would die. So I held her back. It wasn't fear that kept me from moving. It was calculation. It wasn't yet the right time. The moment to act would come, and when it did, everything would change. The sound of something breaking ripped through the chaos. A door shattered behind me and instinct took over. I sprinted forward, heart pounding, toward Namwon, who was about to kill again. The main scenario appeared before my eyes once more, glowing coldly. Time remaining, 7 minutes and 32 seconds.
The air turned thick with smoke, gray tendrils twisting through the confined subway cabin. My lungs burned as I dashed forward, my body moving before my mind caught up. I threw myself toward Namwon Kim, slamming into him with all the force I could muster. The impact sent a dull pain through my shoulder, but I didn't care. His shocked expression barely registered. On the surface, it might have seemed like I had acted to save the old woman, but that wasn't the only reason. There was something else I needed, something crucial to the plan forming in my head. My eyes darted through the smoke and chaos, searching for it. It had to be somewhere nearby. Then I saw it. A child clutching a small box. I grabbed the box gently but firmly, asking him to hold on to it for a moment. My pulse quickened. Everything hinged on what I was about to do. I turned toward the others, forcing myself to breathe evenly. The cabin was drenched in panic, faces twisted in fear and desperation. They were convinced that killing one person would guarantee their survival, that by offering death they could buy more time. They didn't understand the true nature of the scenario. The Dokabi's words still echoed in my mind. Kill one or more living organisms. Not humans, living organisms. It didn't have to be this way. The insanity that had driven them to kill the old woman was still burning in their eyes, but I needed to turn that madness somewhere else, towards something harmless. I opened the box. Inside, small insects scattered, crawling and fluttering in the air. For a heartbeat, the crowd froze. Then the madness shifted. The urge to kill, to survive, redirected itself. They lunged at the insects, desperate, frantic, stomping and swatting as though their lives depended on it, because, in a way, they did. My heart pounded wildly as I crushed one of the insects under my shoe. The faint chime of the system echoed in my mind. The first kill mission had been completed. A golden shimmer filled my vision. 100 coins as a bonus. I had done it. I had cleared the first step without taking a human life. For a brief moment, I felt an inexplicable thrill, a pulse of exhilaration that didn't belong. I was smiling, even as chaos swirled around me. Was it relief? Or something darker? Had I always been like this, finding clarity in moments of catastrophe? The thought unsettled me, yet I couldn't deny the strange satisfaction running through my veins. The others were now scrambling, tearing through the cabin in search of more insects. Only 3 remained. Time was slipping away. The countdown continued. 3 minutes left before the scenario ended. Namwon's laughter cut through the noise, sharp and mocking. I knew exactly what he was thinking. He believed I had thrown the insects into the crowd to provoke them, to turn survival into a contest. And, in a sense, he wasn't entirely wrong. There were only 3 insects left. Not everyone could win this. But what mattered was that no more humans would have to die for now. Namwon's grin widened, the gleam of cruelty in his eyes undeniable. He was one of those people who thrived in destruction, who felt alive only when the world fell apart. He wasn't like the others. While most would break under the weight of this nightmare, he seemed to bloom within it. I activated my character profile, and his information appeared before me. His stats, his tendencies, his mental state. They all lined up with what I remembered. Namwon Kim, the boy who would later be known as the delusional demon. While others in this world succumbed to despair or took their own lives, he had welcomed the apocalypse. For him, this was freedom. He stepped closer to me, interest flickering in his expression. The system window appeared once again. Cold and emotionless. You have obtained Namwon Kim's interest. I felt a strange chill run through me as the next message followed. Main scenario, time remaining, 2 minutes and 59 seconds.
Fire raged in the other cabin, turning the air thick and suffocating. Screams mixed with the crackle of flames, and people still clawed at the floor, desperate to find the last few insects that might save their lives. Amid the chaos, Namwon Kim turned toward me with that same wild grin that had made him infamous in the story. He wanted an alliance. I knew what that meant. If I joined him now, I'd likely survive this scenario, but I also knew who he would become. I'd read his story, his rise and his fall. To him, the apocalypse was liberation. To me, he was a ticking bomb. Teaming up with him would be suicide in slow motion. I refused. I had always worked alone, and I would continue to. Namwon's expression darkened. He pushed forward, muttering about unfinished business with the old woman. I saw the cruel glint in his eyes. He wasn't letting her live. He wanted to crush the insect she represented in his warped vision of the world. I grabbed his arm before he could move. His skin was cold, his muscles coiled with tension. For a moment his grin twisted into disgust. I could feel his contempt radiating from him, the kind he reserved for people he saw as weak or righteous. I remembered how much I hated his character while reading 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. Seeing him now, real and breathing, only deepened that hatred. The system window flickered in front of me. Affinity toward Kim Namwon has slightly decreased. Good. He broke free of my grip, and his fist came flying. I moved just in time, the air splitting beside my face. I knew he'd make that move. I had read this scene countless times. He struck again, faster, more precise. This time, his attack connected. A surge of force slammed into my side, knocking the wind from me. The glimmer of a skill activation flared around him. Skill, Grimdark Awakening, Level 1, activated. His movements grew sharper, his strikes more aggressive, almost animalistic. This was his unique attribute, the embodiment of his delusional hunger for violence. He was ecstatic, reveling in his newfound power. I realized then why the protagonist in the novel had recruited him despite his madness. Namwon Kim was dangerous, but he was useful. That realization brought another flicker in the air. Your understanding of Kim Namwon has increased. That understanding sparked something inside me. If he could use his skill, then so could I. I summoned mine, the one I had only just awakened. Skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, Level 1, activated. The world sharpened. For a moment, I wasn't just seeing Namwon, I was reading him. His intent, his next move, his aggression, they unfolded like text on a page I already knew by heart. He lunged. I sidestepped. His fist tore through empty air. He swung again, but I was already moving, each step guided by instinct and foresight. To him, it must have looked like luck, but I knew exactly where he would strike before he did. His frustration grew. The more he missed, the more desperate his movements became. His attacks grew erratic, furious, but I stayed calm, avoiding each blow with narrow precision. I couldn't win by force, but I could survive. I only had to endure until the scenario ended. 2 minutes, that was all. My eyes flicked to the old woman lying nearby. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale. If she died now, Namwon would clear the scenario instead of me. I couldn't let that happen, no matter what. I rushed toward her. The sound of metal sliding free from a sheath reached my ears. A knife. Namwon was fast, too fast. I saw the gleam of the blade just as he lunged, aiming for my heart.
The system pulsed again. Skill, knife fighting, level 1, activated. I reacted on instinct, shoving the old woman aside as the blade came down. Pain exploded through my arm as steel tore into flesh. My skin burned as if fire itself had entered the wound. But she was alive. I had saved her. Namwon's snarl cut through the haze of pain. I grabbed the old woman, pulling her close. Her pulse was faint. She wouldn't last long. Death was closing in. For her, for me, for all of us. In this world, morality was a luxury. It was survival that ruled now. The strong consumed the weak, and pretending otherwise was delusion. The apocalypse hadn't changed humanity. It had only stripped away its disguise. I forced myself to stand, blood dripping from my arm. My entire body screamed in protest, but I wouldn't fall. Not here. Namwon's laughter rang out, cruel and breathless. He thought I was finished. He was wrong. I focused on him, his posture, his stance, his arrogance, and spoke the truth that would end this. Namwon Kim, second-year student at Chunhill High School, an insect egg, an organism. The system flared again as my hand moved. I picked up one of the surviving bugs, crushed it under my palm, and the familiar chime echoed in my mind. You have killed a living organism, 100 bonus coins awarded. Namwon's eyes widened, realizing what I'd done, and he rushed forward, blade glinting with rage. Another window appeared before me. Would you like to use the coins you have obtained? Without hesitation, I selected my choice. 2,700 coins invested in stamina. A surge of energy flooded my body. The pain in my arm dulled, my muscles hardened like steel. Namwon's knife struck my chest, but this time it didn't pierce. The blade bent slightly under the impact. His shock was almost satisfying. I pushed him back, my voice steady as I thought about the facts. Grasshoppers lay more than 100 eggs in a single mating cycle. That meant more life, more chances, more survival. I wasn't the one who would die here. It would be him, Kim Namwon, the delusional demon. He lunged again, but his strikes no longer carried power. My body was too resilient now, his knife too weak. The system countdown began to echo around us, each second a tolling bell of inevitability. Time remaining, 57 seconds. He screamed in frustration, attacking wildly. I stood my ground, unmoving, unbreakable. His blade bounced off me again and again until the sound of the system's chime filled the air. Main scenario completed. Time has run out, proceeding to checkout.
Namwon Kim lay motionless on the subway floor. The once manic energy in his eyes was gone, replaced by an emptiness that the apocalypse could no longer fill. His body was still warm, but his life had already fled. I stared down at him, remembering the last thing he had done before dying, begging me for help. He hadn't wanted to die. For all his madness, all his cruelty, in those final moments, he was just a terrified boy pleading to live. I told myself that people's lives were precious, that saving him would have been the right thing to do. But that was the rule of the old world, the one that had ended when the Dokebi appeared. This new world demanded new rules. I could have helped him. I knew it. I could have saved others, too. Yet I didn't. As I watched him die, guilt stirred faintly inside me, but it didn't consume me. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. It was as though I were once again just a reader, detached, observing words on a page instead of living them. His death was both horrifying and inevitable, exactly how it had been written. The status window opened before my eyes. You have slaughtered 124 living organisms, 1 grasshopper, 123 eggs. Because I had killed non-resistant creatures, my reward was halved. 6,200 coins obtained. Another notification followed. Achievement unlocked. Decimator. Due to excessive slaughtering. 300 coins rewarded for scenario completion. The familiar chime of the system sounded almost comforting. Around me, the remnants of the old world continued to crumble. Flames flickered faintly in the next cabin, but the train began to move again. For a fleeting moment, we all felt the illusion of safety, as though we could just go home. Then, I looked outside. The city was gone. Buildings had collapsed, streets were split open, and the sky burned red with chaos. Monstrous shapes crawled across the ruins. The others gasped when they saw the massive form rising beneath the sea, a creature that dwarfed everything in sight. I recognized it instantly. Ichthyosaur, the sea serpent. In the novel, it would later be classified as a grade 7 monster. Even from this distance, its scales glimmered like steel, and its roar rattled the glass. Mr. Han trembled nearby, convinced it was coming for us. But I knew better. This world followed rules. Scenarios governed everything. If the serpent wasn't part of the current one, it wouldn't attack. For now, we were safe. There were only 5 of us left in cabin 387. Me, Yoo Sung-ah, Lee Hyung-sung, Lee Ji-hai, and the child, Lee Gil-young. Then the Dokebi appeared again, his glowing form flickering like static light. He floated above the carnage, pretending to be shocked. His voice was filled with exaggerated disbelief as he surveyed the damage. Only 5 survivors, yet he seemed pleased. A window shimmered into existence before him, 21 glowing stars. He called them viewers, but I knew what they truly were. Constellations. The constellations, those mysterious beings who watched from across the universe. They were the architects and the audience of this nightmare, live streaming our suffering for their entertainment. 21 of them were watching this channel. For a new stream, that was a lot. In the original story, Namwon Kim had killed almost everyone in this cabin. This outcome was completely different, and the constellations noticed. Due to the death of Namwon Kim, 2 constellations feel hostility towards you, it figured. Some of them must have favored him. The cruel ones, perhaps. Those who loved chaos. The next message appeared immediately after that. Your payment has been delayed due to an unexpected scenario inspection. So, even the system was surprised. The flow of events had changed. This was it. The true beginning of the story. I had been in their position once, watching from afar, safe behind the screen. But now I was the one being observed. They watched me, analyzed me, judged me. And then another window appeared. Several constellations are impressed with your performance. 500 coins rewarded. Of course, if some constellations hated me, others were intrigued. It balanced out in the end. Let them watch. Let them pay their attention and their coins. Sooner or later, they would all pay the admission fee, with their lives. The train rattled onward, carrying us into the unknown. Yoo Sung-ah stood nearby, her clothes stained with soot and dust. She called out to me softly. I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. I apologized for not saving the old woman. She wanted to ask something, but hesitated, then thanked me instead. She knew what I had done. She knew that I had thrown the insect cage toward her on purpose so she could clear the scenario. I brushed it off, saying it was just a coincidence. She didn't believe me, but she didn't argue. She was sharp, too sharp to die easily in this new world. Still, her gratitude felt undeserved. People had lived because of my decisions, but others had died just as easily. I laughed quietly. 5 survivors. More than I expected. Hyun-sung Lee, the soldier. I'd known he would make it. His strength was unmatched even before his attribute awakened. Lee Ji-hai, the stubborn high schooler, had survived too. Mr. Han was among us, looking pale but alive, and then there was the boy, Lee Gil-young, clutching his insect box with trembling hands. He was the one I had entrusted earlier, the true hero of this cabin. I approached him carefully. His wide eyes met mine, and I asked him if he wanted to live. That was all that mattered now. He nodded weakly. I offered him my hand, and the system responded. Several constellations are pleased with your good deed. 200 coins rewarded. It felt shameless to benefit from something so small, but in this world everything was a transaction. Survival itself required performance, and if I wanted to keep living, I needed their attention. The dokebi clapped his hands together, his grin unnerving. He praised us for surviving, calling the day exciting. Apparently, the neighboring cabin had been even worse. He seemed delighted by the chaos, his glowing eyes sparkling with amusement. Mr. Han stepped forward, asking him to let us go. For a moment, I thought about how absurd it was, how this man, who probably commuted comfortably every day before, had ended up trapped here with us. A well-off man caught in the wrong story. The dokebi tilted his head, feigning confusion at the request. He asked whether we really wanted to be released, his voice dripping with mockery. When Mr. Han glanced out the window and saw the massive serpent still coiled in the distance, his color drained from his face. The dokebi was amused. He said he hadn't expected much from this cabin, but we had surprised him. Even bugs, he said, deserved to survive. In his eyes, that was all we were. Grasshoppers. Crawling things barely worth acknowledging. Still, he declared that every hardship deserved a reward. The survivors of the first scenario were now qualified to receive sponsorship from constellations. None of the others seemed to understand what that meant. The dokebi frowned when he saw our confusion. He called us weak and pitiful, saying that in our current state, we'd be killed by something as small as a ground rat in the next scenario. But there were great beings, constellations, who pitied us, who wanted to grant us their favor. Hyung-song asked what sponsorship meant. The dokebi waved his hand impatiently, saying it didn't matter. The next instant, countless translucent windows filled the air around us, displaying our names, our stats, our hidden attributes, everything that made us who we were in this new world.